Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, two high-profile role players who could be available to the Suns via trade in a best-case scenario, and will the Suns actually be making a pick we expect at the NBA draft? All on a bonus episode of Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Brendon Kleen, your host, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons and the host of the Just Basketball Show. Welcome in. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to kick off your weekend. That's right. It is a bonus episode of the show. Appreciate you finding us today. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not before. Get a new episode of this show in your feed every single Monday through Friday. We got all of the news, all of the rumors, all of the moves on lock here. So, become an everydayer all offseason long into next season. Why not? Keep it right here. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns all offseason long. All right. We got a lot to hit on, actually. Some news in Suns land, some news around the NBA, and it is that time of year, so figured why not? Let's do 6. Let's do 6 in a week. Who's holding us back? Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA when you do to get a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, so first order of business, trades. In the NBA, there was a fairly big trade on Thursday. Josh Giddey going to Chicago. Alex Caruso going to Oklahoma City, where he began his career in the G League. Now, we'll actually circle back around to that trade to close out the show, but from a Suns standpoint, your antenna might have gone up when you saw that news, because Caruso, I always joke the Thunder are just accumulating clones of the exact same types of players. I feel like there's a lot of nights where Jalen Williams, J-Dub, Phoenix native, looks a heck of a lot like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their MVP candidate. I feel like Cason Wallace basically is Alex Caruso, but just a little younger. They got Aaron Wiggins, who's kind of the J-Dub clone himself. It's just multiplying. What that means, though, when a player whose name I didn't say there is Lu Dort, and that he could be potentially available. Now, we'll pause there. Let's go to New York. This has not happened for sure yet, although it legally can. Isaiah Hartenstein is a free agent out with the Knicks, and because we're in this window where teams are able to agree to contracts with their own players, Hartenstein technically could agree to a new contract any day. Now, will he? We'll see, but it seems very much like the Knicks are interested in it. We'll see what that number comes in at. We'll see. Doesn't really matter from the Suns standpoint. They don't have the money to sign Hartenstein anyway. What it matters from a Suns standpoint is the potential availability of Mitchell Robinson, who up until midway through this season or so, when he got hurt, was the starting center for the Knicks. He is a player that I said all the way back in April, when I first started to go through a list of players around the NBA who might be gettable by way of a Jusuf Nurkic trade for Phoenix. All right? Whether that is pick number 22 this year, which it looks increasingly likely that the Suns will not actually be trading. We'll talk about that next. Or more likely, the 2031 first-round pick that they will have at their disposal starting next Wednesday night in the NBA draft. Also, just side note, I've said next Thursday like 150 times talking about the draft this past couple of weeks. I had no idea that they had moved it to Wednesday, Thursday. I thought the second round thing that they were going to be televising now, day 2 of the draft, which is new, was Friday night. It's not. They moved the whole thing up on top of adding that extra day. So there we go. Wednesday, the Suns will have that pick. That's when I could see them going after Robinson and Dort. All right, so could the Suns get those players is the question. They both appear to be relatively available. I think the Knicks are probably much more likely to trade Robinson. You're already hearing rumors that he could be available. The Dort thing is sort of maybe an imaginary a possibility. Let's talk about Robinson first. He makes sense for the Suns. He does the things that they needed from a center very badly this past year. He is an elite rebounder on, I guess I would say, especially the offensive end, which I think you can give or take, take it or leave it, I should say. As a great team, you don't need to be awesome at offensive rebounding. His total rebounding percentage was only 19.2, which isn't elite by any means, but his offensive rebounding is great, and he's a pretty good shot blocker. And even if he's maybe not the most elite, high-flying Ben Wallace shot blocker or whatever you want to compare him to that there is in the league, he anchors the paint. He has good footwork and awareness and IQ to kind of be in that drop coverage and take up space, eliminate shots at the rim. So a lot of those things are what we know the Suns need. He also makes not insane amount of money. Of course, the issue is he is hurt all the time. This past season, only played 31 games, got injured twice. Previous season, 59 games. Season before that, 72. Then before that, 31. So you shouldn't count on him to be playing more than, I would say, 60 games at this point. He had injuries back to college and high school. It's a risk. That said, he, again, only makes $14.3 million this year and $12.9 million the following season. So, pretty perfect trade candidate for the Suns. Trade target for the Suns. But the problem here is really not any different than the Thunder, which I will jump back to now. Lu Dort obviously went to Arizona State University, which is, I'm sure, why Suns fans have kept tabs on him, but a player who, just like Robinson, does a lot of the things that the Suns really needed this past season. Point of attack defense. You're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody in the league more capable at that one skill than Dort. There was a great feature on him in The Athletic this past year about all the little tricks that he pulls. I believe it was by Fred Katz. Just really impressive. Strong, can guard up, gave Luka a heck of a run. And this past year, for whatever reason, had just the best shooting season of his entire life. If you watched him at ASU, the guy was kind of thought of as like a playmaker, a point guard back then. Couldn't shoot much at all. 29% as a rookie, bounced around not really bounced around actually, was pretty consistently only making about a third of his threes every season, year by year, up until this season, where suddenly he made 39% of his threes. And a lot of the year, that was actually up around 45% or so. And it settled in at 39. And it stayed at 39 even in the playoffs. I just don't personally feel like the Thunder are going to be in any sort of hurry to trade Dort for what the Suns have to offer. Oklahoma City is no longer in a situation where it makes sense for them to be taking picks for worse players. The only scenario in which I could possibly see the Thunder agreeing to a trade like that is if there's a third team involved and they are getting something substantially better in return. Think what happened with DeAndre Ayton going to Portland, Lillard being what went to Milwaukee, and then the Suns getting some pieces from both of those teams. That's really it. I could see the Thunder trading Dort. I do not think that it would be to the Phoenix Suns. The same is kind of true of Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks are getting expensive. They have a little bit of a logjam at center, given that they saw Hartenstein and Achua play pretty well. They also have Julius Randle to keep in mind here. They don't need Mitchell Robinson. I could see them offloading him. But in both situations, you're talking about teams that are trying to win a championship next year, taking back, in the form of Jusuf Nurkic, a more expensive and, frankly, equivalent player, if not worse player, at best. In some, like Dort's just straight up like twice as valuable in terms of what he does in the modern NBA than Nurkic. You could tell me that's not even a good enough trade for the Thunder, even in their rebuilding mode, when they were just taking picks back in order to get, help teams solve their own mistakes, which is what Nurkic kind of is just because he makes so much money. Even then, it might not have made sense. It certainly doesn't feel like it makes sense now when the Thunder are trying to win. The Knicks want to dump Mitchell Robinson, but I think that to them it would probably be much more of a dump. Not, well, if they're trying to get rid of Nurkic or Robinson in order to clear up a logjam and alleviate some of their money concerns and everything else, it makes no sense to take back Nurkic in place of that. I look up and down the league. I still see the Spurs with Zach Collins in the 35th pick. I see Charlotte with Grant Williams and I believe the 42nd pick. There's other options, I'm sure, in your mind that might make sense, but I don't think trading with good championship contending teams for players who make less than Nurkic by that much, everybody the Suns trade for has to make less, of course, with the second apron, but by that much, good luck. I don't see it happening. We got news about the draft from both John Gambadoro locally and Kevin O'Connor at the national level. Could the Suns really be making a pick that we expect in that range? Talk about it next. First, today's show brought to you by PrizePicks. The NBA might be over season-wise, but sports are going on, and PrizePicks is there for you. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, over 5 million active users, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, PrizePicks, it's just you against those numbers. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch that money roll in. Get in on the daily action all summer long across all of your favorite sports. Of course, baseball every day. The NHL Stanley Cup Final is still going on. And, of course, women's basketball is not slowing down. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, the newcomers, the superstars, all of it there. You just pick more or less on their stats, and that's how you win. More on Caitlin Clark threes, more on Asia Wilson rebounds, more on Corbin Carroll total bases, let's say. You can do all of it at PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, let's keep it rolling. So, local angle on the NBA draft next Wednesday. Yes, got it right that time. So, John Gambadoro, all of the next Thursday, Friday, so yesterday and today, and then Monday, Tuesday, and I guess Wednesday, he is going to be unveiling his Gambo 5, the players, as he does with the Cardinals every year, that he believes could be in contention for pick number 22 on Wednesday. Now, I'll also remind you before we get into the players' side, Gambo continues to reiterate that the Suns are intrigued by the possibility of trading down. So when I say pick 22, it very well might not be pick 22. That's why when I'm talking about the Nurkic trades, I'm throwing out the Spurs have the 35th pick. The Hornets have the 42nd pick. We talked about how the Knicks have 24 and 25. We've talked about how the Bucks have pick, I believe, 23 right after the Suns, as well as like 33. So keep that in your head. But what he went ahead and said player-wise today is that he added Tyler Kolek to the Gambo 5. So we talked on Friday's show about Yves Missy, the freshman center from Baylor, being one of the 5. Now he's adding Kolek. We talked plenty about Tyler Kolek. I believe it would be a solid move. I believe on a winning team, his ability to make spot-up threes, his ability to play fast or slow, transition or half court, orchestrate an offense, his size, plays bigger than 6'3", and his experience all make him a very solid option if the Suns were to go that route. Now, what Gambo is also doing is sort of crossing a player off. Assuming, guessing, speculating, reporting, basically saying that player is very, very unlikely to be the Suns selection in the draft. And so on Thursday, he crossed out Kyle Filipowski, the Duke big man. And on Friday, he crossed off Day'Ron Holmes, the Dayton big man. Now, that one's a little bit more surprising, right? Filipowski made a lot of sense. Gambo reported he didn't even work out for the Suns. His skill set is very much similar to Nurk, so even if the Suns are keeping Nurk, It doesn't make a lot of sense to have two versions of a similar player given how that bit them last year. And if they're not keeping Nurk, that probably means they're saying goodbye to that type of player altogether. So Filipowski, great. Talked about that yesterday. This one, though, Holmes, he does sort of seem like what the Suns need, you know? And so that part, I understand less. He's also experienced, right? So he played 3 years at Dayton. He grew up in Arizona, was born in Goodyear, which, wow. And then went to high school at Compass Prep, which is a big prep school here. So with the experience, he's 6'10", he's athletic, he can actually space it potentially a little bit as he developed a shot as he aged in college. He did have a lot of the ingredients that made me, I've talked about him on the show as a possibility, so it did surprise me. The local ties, the skill set, the physical profile, it all kind of added up. Here's the other part of it. The other part is the national reporting from Kevin O'Connor, and I'll say what that was before I jump to the big takeaway here. Kevin O'Connor had some reports that the Suns are working out a lot of players that I don't think we would expect. Okay? That's kind of you got Tyler Smith. Trying to find my list. For some unknown reason, closed out the tab. Ryan Dunn, Tyler Smith, Jameer Nelson Jr., and of course Tyler Kolek, who we already knew was working out here, who did a sit-down interview with Dwayne Rankin. So I'm just going to go to Kevin O'Connor's big board because he covers this stuff himself. Jameer Nelson does not appear to be on his big board, which includes 60 to 100 players, 62 players. Jameer Nelson is not on that list. So the Suns worked out a lot of guys in this mold previously, second-round type players, so let's just put that one off to the side. But Ryan Dunn is a wing from Virginia, which of course has a very good track record of churning out solid wings from DeAndre Hunter to Trey Murphy on down the line. 2 years, so he was a sophomore, shot only 20% from three, so that's a little bit of the difference here, right? He's much more of an athletic, toolsy, defensive prospect who Kevin O'Connor, for instance, calls the best defender in the class. But he's not a 3-and-D player the way that Murphy or even Hunter, who's been more of an average three-point shooter but still could knock him down, was coming out of Virginia. Tyler Smith went to G League. He went the G League Ignite route and is also fairly young, all things considered. Again, in the grand scheme of what the Suns tend to look at. So, in the G League, Tyler Smith shot 36% from the field. He had from three. He had a 4% block rate, a 2% steal rate. He is 6'11", but more of a forward than, he's not a center so much. He's listed at 6'11" on Real GM, listed at 6'9" in Kevin O'Connor's draft guide, which I believe is probably pulled from combine numbers. So let's call him 6'9". More of a spacing forward, but could be, with that block rate, seems to be flashing some athletic ability as well. I like it, but all of these, between Missy, between Dunn, and Smith, that is three players now who we know that the Suns have either worked out or are interested in, who do not fit what we associated with the Suns draft philosophy for the past 6 years, frankly. And so, what do we do with that? I just bring it up again because I did talk about this a little bit with Missy, but it continues to be reiterated with now 3 new names. I believe that the Suns are very much course-correcting from last year and going all out in the name of size. We got the formal news. I didn't make a segment or really focus on it because it just was a formality after Gambo reported it. But on Friday, Woj kind of made it official that Eubanks has opted out of his contract. So he's gone. All of the players the Suns are talking about are, whether it's wingspan or height or both, are physically big for their position and more athletic and raw than we typically see. So size, but also, betting on upside a little bit. I guess the development upside side of it does track with how the Suns have approached filling out their front office this summer with guys in the front office from college, guys in the coaching staff from college, and a little bit of an overhaul of all of that. So great. I guess where I kind of split the difference here and try to make sense of all of it is to return to this idea that has been brought up by multiple people now across all of the kind of NBA landscape that the Suns appear to be very much exploring, open to trading down. I'm not saying that, Tyler Smith, for instance, is getting mocked kind of in the Suns' range. Dunn, I guess, a little less so, given that the shot is such a question mark. But Jalen Tyson, we've talked about. Tyler Kolek, we've talked about. Those are players who are probably going to be available later in the first round. I think that the Suns, to me, would seem more likely to pick a raw player like Missy, like Dunn, like Smith, if they were getting multiple cracks at it, right? So the fact that they're doing this leads me to believe even more that they are considering a trade down that would allow them to maybe have a later first-round pick and a second-round pick, maybe 2 early seconds. I don't know what it ends up looking like, but that model feels like where we're headed if the Suns can get if it can go in their favor, if they can get what they're looking for. And that's fascinating because we know on one hand they want somebody who is ready to contribute right now. That was the whole message behind Kolek. But, I'll even throw Bronny in here, right? A lot of the other guys the Suns have been looking at don't fit that at all. So it feels like their hope here is that they could potentially walk out of this whole thing with, let's say, Dunn and Kolek, for instance, right? Or there's a lot of names we haven't heard anything about, but, plenty of other bigs and other options around that range who could step in and be contributors, and Bronny, right? Like I feel like my best guess right now of what their hope would be for next Wednesday. All right, let's talk through back around to some of the bigger NBA news, what to watch for, my takeaways from the first few moves that we've seen, all coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, the best place to hire, the best place to get a job. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, which is why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, making it the best place to hire. LinkedIn does all of the dirty work for you, all the finding, the scouring, the sorting, to make the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. The job search tool is really easy. I've told you I got my job from LinkedIn. I found the posting, I found the description, I found the benefits and salary and all that stuff that I felt would be correct and proper and whatever that I was qualified for, right? And then they were able to say, yeah, you're qualified. We scheduled an interview. The rest is history. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Become one of the 2.5 million small businesses using LinkedIn for hiring. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's close out the bonus episode here to kick off your weekend. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to check out Locked On NBA to catch up on all the news around the league every single day throughout the offseason as well. But we'll get there now. On the Suns side of things, there's been a lot of news. This negotiating window has kind of worked. A lot of the deals that we would just see tweeted out instantaneously when the clock hit 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. here. All right, is that right? Yeah. On June 30th, the past few years, or if you remember back to the midnight Eastern days, those have all just kind of been signed already. So, the Malik Monk, the Pascal Siakam, a lot of that stuff is, and we're going to see more would be my guess, that stuff's just done now. So if we group those moves in as well as the Giddey Caruso deal, the Kings one, you just got to keep your guys. What I'm really interested in is the Siakam and the Caruso deals. And it again, to me, it comes back to size and strength. I have felt for a while, I guess to me, I probably big picture basketball thought analysis philosophy, if you want to call it that, I started to feel like positional strength, functional strength, the ability to use your physicality to affect games, whether that was a driver to the basket, a finisher at the basket, a guard who could post up, or any of that on the offensive end, or more specifically, more commonly, defensive players who could guard up, who could really disrupt ball handlers' rhythm, who could fight over and through screens to play defense. That skill was one of the most impossible to replicate and most valuable things that you could find in a player, especially if they could, on defense, if they could do that well. They also have to be offensively talented enough to stay on the floor, but if they were, you could really be working with fire. And I thought about it back then more with the small ball era, right? When everybody was switching and Draymond Green's playing center and PJ Tucker's playing center and Tristan Thompson's playing center and everything else. Now, or I guess I should say like Kevin Love or Chris Bosh, right? But now we're back to kind of big ball. But when you look at Siakam, it is the ability to kind of, guard bigger players, take up space as a team defender. I actually think his defense has fallen off a bit from his peak, and they need to get it back because Indiana needs that from him. But that's at one aspect. Offensively, again, it's just somebody who can get inside. And honestly, functional strength also is part of what allows you to get your shot off, right? Functional strength, like I think of Kelsey Plum in the WNBA, frankly. She's one of the smaller players in the whole league, but she has functional strength that allows her to finish through contact, that allows her to get her pull-up three off through, tough defense. And Siakam has a little bit of that from the mid-range and in the high post area. So they went from Obi Toppin and guys like that being their four to Siakam. And now they're paying him a max contract to keep that identity intact. I look at Alex Caruso, nobody's idea of a big man, of course, but what Alex Caruso can do, very similar to Drew Holiday and players like that, is Caruso can guard up. Caruso was basically the Bulls' power forward because DeMar DeRozan, not much of they are hiding him on defense anyway. They have a very guard-heavy roster, so whether it was Levine and White, Levine and Carter, White and Carter, they have Vooch at center, so Caruso was basically the guy that they would just sick on whatever size player outside of a 5. Caruso was just going to guard them, and they were going to switch a lot, and he was going to be a team defender guy. He was basically playing like a forward on defense. And now the Thunder have him in place of Giddey, in place of maybe Dort, like I talked about in that first segment. And they got more functional strength, positional and lineup versatility, and defensive intensity from that move. That's going to continue to be what we're going to see. And so that's why I'm as I talked about on Friday's show, Eubanks wasn't going to make sense in that world. Maybe there's a version of his career where he can take another step forward and get another crack on a winning team and prove us all wrong. I don't really care at this point. He's not on the Suns, and I wish everybody the best. But it wasn't going to make sense this upcoming year on this particular team. Gordon, that defensive fall-off where he's not what he was on those teams that I just mentioned where PJ Tucker was playing center for Houston. And that became the difference between can he really make a big impact on a winning team or can he not? He also didn't have that functional strength as a downhill driving scorer. So, does he have a place in the NBA on a winning team at age 36 if those skills aren't there? I'm not so sure. And I guess to come back around to the draft, I'm glad that the Suns are prioritizing size to that degree. You got to get it right. It's not just enough to say, well, our roster on average is 2 inches taller than it was last year, okay, or 15 pounds heavier. I don't care. They got to be the right guys. But, whether it's, spaced bigger wing ball like Boston and Dallas had, or it is straight up big ball like Minnesota had, everybody's bigger at every spot. There's multiple ways to get there. There's multiple ways to maximize that. Not every roster, not every player, not every team is going to be the same. But overall, the Suns need to go and are trending toward going from having 3 guys that are 6'5" or shorter in their starting lineup, a 6'9" backup center, no backup, real forward-sized players to speak of, and, no backup guards to speak of, to having, hopefully, a backup guard that has some size and can actually play, a backup big, and potentially even a starting big that's a little bit more physically ready, and hopefully some depth at forward. Even just reallocating resources to the right positions on the roster in that way can go a long way toward helping the Suns compete against these teams. But if they can really nail it and get guys who have that functional strength, that positional versatility, that force and intensity and physicality to their game, that's going to be the difference between if they can get back to contention this upcoming season or if they're going to slot in where they did this year. Succeed, maybe a first-round win, maybe not, and relatively unimpressive. We'll see. That'll wrap us up. Look, if news comes on Saturday, if we see some kind of trade up or trade down situation, I'll be here. If there's news, I'll be here. If there's not news, you still got me 5 times. So hit follow or subscribe. Get episodes in your feed constantly. Let's just call it constantly. I'll talk to you guys next time.